You're watching WAAY 31 Law Call, where lawyers come to help. Your rights, your calls, live. Hosted by family law attorney Sharon Dovian. With the personal injury attorneys of one of the Valley's most respected law firms, Timberlake and League. Featuring the knowledge of managing partner Michael Timberlake, with millions of dollars awarded to his clients. And the experience of attorney Will League, a strong courtroom fighter known for his commitment to winning. And the fellow partners of Timberlake and League Heath Brooks and William Meservey. This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Welcome to WAAY 31 Law Call. I'm Robert Lane, in for Sharon Dovian. She has the weekend off. Our topic tonight, bankruptcy. We're going to be talking about your money. So if you've been worried about can you pay your bills, all of that type of stuff, you need to be giving us a call. This might shock you, but in 2022, Alabama had the highest personal bankruptcy rate in the United States. So if you have questions about bankruptcy, which one to choose, how to apply, it's 256-536-0077. We want your phone calls, 256-536-0077. And joining me tonight is Michael Timberlake, the managing partner of Timberlake and League.
It's great to be here.
It is. Okay, Michael. Well, I see our guest is here on the shot. You might want to introduce her.
We have Raven Perry Beach here. She's a bankruptcy lawyer local to Huntsville, and we're going to see what she can share with us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
While they're getting their phone calls in, Raven, we are going to take a look at a clip that we've gotten from YouTube.
All right.
Okay, and it's you make the law call. So, here, watch the roof. See the two guys on the roof, and watch the roof over the patio. What's going to happen? Ah! Boom!
Ooh.
When I'll
a little misjudgment there going on there.
So Michael is the smartest lawyer I know. So if you came to him with this case, what would you tell him?
Well, I would tell you that you've got a lot of problems here, because there's an inherently dangerous activity that you've engaged in. The patio roof. It's open and obvious, unless somebody had, convinced you otherwise that this was a safe thing to do. I think more than likely you've assumed the risk of injury, or in Alabama we have a contributory negligence law that would prohibit any type of recovery. So I think it's just best to avoid jumping off roofs.
Well, they survived and did okay. So that you're a kid doesn't get you off the hook?
If you're below 14, you can't be contributory negligent. But at the same time, you look and see what did the homeowner do wrong here, other than just have a house with a pool and a roof that somebody could get up on.
So Raven, could they keep the house? Do you think if they got they got sued for injuries?
I would say I'll give you the very lawyerly response. It depends.
I bet it does. Listen, to get us started, we're talking bankruptcy tonight, and we want your phone calls, 256-536-0077. But explain to me so that I can sort of understand.
Okay.
There are two types of bankruptcy.
That's correct.
Is that right?
That's correct.
So explain the two different types.
Well, there are primarily two types that people who kind of get into financial problems look to file. That's Chapter 7 and Chapter 13. Chapter 7 is a basic liquidation, and Chapter 13 is more of a reorganization of your debts.
So in like a Chapter 7, if the debtor, at the end of that, their debts are wiped away completely?
Essentially, yes. There's no more personal liability for that debt. Now, if the debtor was to choose to later, make voluntary payments on a debt, they could, but the creditor could no longer come after them.
Right, and in Chapter 13, it's different. You make a plan to pay back the debt?
That's correct. A plan has to be made, and that lasts for a minimum of 3 years and a maximum of 5 years. And they have to be approved by a bankruptcy judge.
Oh, interesting.
Well, we have a caller standing by. Paterica from Harvest has been kind enough to give us a call. Paterica, what's on your mind tonight?
Hi. I just put it together here in Raven's name. I just want to say I'm a huge fan of the expungement clinics your law firm does with Commissioner Violet Edwards downtown. It really means a lot to folks around here. But my question is, I had to file a bankruptcy a while ago. This past year, just getting back from the pandemic, kind of got behind, and I'm just up to my eyeballs in debt again. Is there a possibility for me to file for bankruptcy again? Thank you.
No.
And how long ago did you say you filed?
About 4 years ago, probably.
And you filed a Chapter 7?
That's right.
Okay. Well, pursuant to federal law, you actually have to wait 8 years from the date of filing. So I don't think you're quite within that time frame, but you could potentially file a Chapter 13. So you might want to explore that.
And so what's the benefit of filing a Chapter 13? You would think of, a Chapter 7, I can just wipe everything away. But what are the benefits of filing Chapter 13 instead of a 7?
Well, 13, I usually advise people to file those in instances where maybe they've fallen behind on their car payments or their house payments, because that's a way to kind of come up with a plan to repay those things and still keep them.
Right. So you can keep your assets in check and just reorganize your debt and keep the people from the credit agency off your back?
That's correct.
All right, nice.
And why do you think that Alabama tends to file bankruptcy more than other states? Because we don't have any money? Because we...
I mean, that's a tough question. I mean, I think you'd look at, from that situation, you'd look at, what's the socioeconomic status of the entire state and what's going on, and and or just what would is it it's a job market type of thing, or what leads people to do it?
Now this is federal law, right?
Right.
So the state has no control over.
Well, we do have what's called state exemptions. So though you file bankruptcy in federal court, there are state laws that actually apply.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and so can I get out? So for instance, I get hurt. You're suing me.
Right.
Okay, I got to pay. Can I declare bankruptcy and I have to pay you?
Well, what'll happen is in the situation in a personal injury claim, if you, we go through the claim and you can get a judgment against somebody who's at fault. Say they didn't have insurance, you can get a judgment against them personally. They can file bankruptcy, and that situation, and it can be discharged in bankruptcy unless it is something that they did that was reckless or punitive. Reckless or careless to the point where you get punitive damages, and punitive damages are not dischargeable in bankruptcy necessarily. So, in our situation, claims against individuals, they're always the threat out there that they will file for bankruptcy, and unless they're, unless they have substantial assets that they would lose in a bankruptcy, a lot of times that's just the answer. They get a huge judgment against them, they, discharge it in bankruptcy.
Raven, if I declare bankruptcy, do I get to keep the stuff I bought?
Well, that, again, it depends. We have under state law, we do have exemptions that would apply. So if you own a house, you could claim up to $15,000. And if you were married, that would double to $30,000. And then for personal assets, so anything other than real property like houses, I think the wild card exemption is like $7,500.
Yeah, but does the bankruptcy trustee will accumulate what's the personal assets in the estate? But are they going to take somebody's clothes, their personal things?
No, those things are generally exempt.
Right. Okay.
So they generally fall under the wild card exemption.
All right.
And do I have to declare bankruptcy with my spouse, or?
You do not have to. You can actually file, even if you are married, you can file alone, though your spouse's income will be imputed to you. So some of their income will still be counted in your bankruptcy.
Well, give us a call, 256-536-0077. We're taking calls about your money and mostly about bankruptcy. And bankruptcy, you say I have to wait 8 years and then I can file again?
That's correct. If you filed a Chapter 7, it is 8 years from the filing date.
And is there a limit on the number of times you can file a Chapter 7 if you wait 8 years in between?
I mean, this seems like a racket. We can get this thing going.
Well, you're going to have a hard time, I think, accumulating anything. If you file bankruptcy, you're going to, are you going to be able to get credit?
Right. Well, you can reestablish credit, but there's a length of time to do that. So it's not something that I would readily recommend doing often, for sure.
Well, but I have heard that you have a clean slate when you're bankruptcy, and that you can basically start all over again.
Well,
true or not true?
That's true with the Chapter 7. Again, with the 13, that's 3 to 5 years. So you're not really starting over with that so much as reorganizing your debts. I'm sorry.
So what advice, do you try and get people out of debt, like collection agencies and things of that nature? Would you advise, I mean, not collection agencies, but people who bring your, everything that you owe into one payment? Debt consolidation, yeah. Do you recommend that? Not necessarily?
Well, I would recommend it in some cases. Not everyone is really fit for a bankruptcy, so I don't advise it for every client that comes into my office. I'm going to advise what I think is best for you in your situation. So sometimes debt consolidation is a better option for you.
Well, and then I just have one other sort of question. How do you make sure you get paid first? I would think that your clients, well, it might be tough to come up with the cash.
Well, in a Chapter 7, the debtor has to pay me first. Yeah, yep, that is under federal law. I cannot become a creditor to that debtor when we file. The rules are a little different and a little more lax when we go to file a Chapter 13. They are able to file attorney's fees or to pay the attorney's fees and the trustee and all their creditors through the plan.
You have she has great information, doesn't she?
Absolutely.
So give us a call, 536-536-0077. We'll be back with more Law Call right after this.
This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Welcome back. We're talking bankruptcy tonight with Raven Perry Beach. But before we get to this, I want to give a little reminder about your wheelchair brigade at Broadway Theater League.
Right. Every the year the Broadway Theater League has a series of performances that they put on every year at the Von Braun Civic Center, and we're pleased to to sponsor the Wheelchair Brigade, which is a little play on our personal injury practice. But what we do is we sponsor this as a service for people that are patrons of the Broadway Theater League that can't necessarily get in and out on their own without a little help. And so what we want to do is allow them access to these wonderful events on a regular basis. Next year they've got some upcoming things that are exciting. Beetlejuice is going to be a real good one, and my wife tells me I need to go see Mean Girls. So we're going to go do that. And To Kill a Mockingbird is always a lawyer favorite. So check these shows out, and if you need wheelchair access, it's there for you, courtesy of my firm.
You just call the Broadway Theater League, and they'll come down and pick you up with a chair. Come From Away is about the airplane that had to land in Ganderlin during the 9/11, and it's a fascinating, most patriotic show you'll probably ever see. And I will tell you, aside from John Boy being in To Kill a Mockingbird, who's coming here, but the lady who played Scott, little girl who played Scott in the movie, is going to be in the play here in
Oh, really?
At BTL.
Oh,
Yeah.
fabulous.
So
Awesome.
we're talking bankruptcy, and Susan has been so patient to wait. Susan, what's on your mind tonight?
Yeah, I have this question. I've got, I did have a friend. I loaned them some money for their business, and we had a little agreement and everything. And so when I said, when am I going to get my money back, she filed bankruptcy, and then I had to get a lawyer to go to federal court as a creditor. Was there anything I could do on that, or am I just up the creek because she filed bankruptcy?
Well, yeah, I mean that's one of those things. If you're going to loan somebody money, a lot of times what we'll look at it do is who has priority? Is there collateral for a certain debt? And that's one of the things that the bankruptcy court will look at in this situation. But if you're just a debtor like everybody else, there's not certain collateral that attaches to your debt or certain type of priority, what happens?
Well, I would say it really depends on what chapter of bankruptcy was filed. She didn't say whether she knew it was a 7 or a 13. or it could have even been an 11 in this case if it was a business. I'm going to assume that it wasn't though. If a Chapter 7 was filed, there would be really no recourse. You won't be able to recover anything, unfortunately, unless it was an asset case, unless there was something left over. And there's often not in Chapter 7s. In a 13, potentially some recovery there, some repayment. It would just depend on the circumstances.
Right. But if someone owes me money and they go bankrupt, what do I do? Do I have to get a lawyer?
Yeah, she did the right thing.
You're the lawyer for the other person.
That's correct. So you retain an attorney and you have to file a claim as a creditor. She was correct about that.
And then the judge makes a decision whether that is included in the bankruptcy or not included?
Essentially, yes.
Yeah, so if it's a 7, they'll discharge the debt completely typically. If it's a 13, a lot of times they'll figure out, what the person's income is, what the assets are, and then try to figure out, who gets paid what in a plan. It's going to be less than whole,
right.
But it's like a pro rata share of what your plan, what your debt is. So she get 20 cents back on a dollar, but it's better than nothing.
It doesn't matter if I'm a relative or not a relative. I'm asking for a friend.
Relatives don't get anything.
I wouldn't be surprised in my experience. So if you have a question about bankruptcy, it's 256-536-0077.
We were talking a little bit about bankruptcy in Alabama and how it's a little more prevalent. But is there any assistance that people can get, and outside of necessarily filing for bankruptcy, in terms of what people the state can do for you?
Well, there is a program through the Madison County Volunteer Lawyers Program, and it's called ABAP. That's Alabama Bankruptcy Assistance Project. So people who are at I think it's the 200% or below the poverty level can potentially seek assistance through this project by just reaching out to the local volunteer lawyers program and seeing if you qualify.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah, I mean the volunteer lawyer program does a lot of beneficial things for people in Madison County. Basically, in civil claims, they'll set you up with a private attorney that has agreed to take a certain number of pro bono cases and can help people with problems. They don't do contested divorce cases. They don't do what would be typically fee-generating cases. But if somebody's doesn't have below the poverty level and can't afford someone in a civil matter, you can look at Legal Services of Alabama or the Volunteer Lawyer Program. Do great work for folks in Madison County.
And you can always email us questions, and we're going to take one now from Mark. So Mark says he filed Chapter 13 back in 2015. It's no longer on the credit report, but I need to start looking at mortgages and other credit. Do I need to self-report the bankruptcy if it's no longer on the report? And that's from Mark. Thank you, Mark.
I would say no. I don't think there's any affirmative duty to report a bankruptcy unless they specifically asked that question. Of course, I wouldn't encourage anyone to perjure themselves.
Right.
But beyond a specific question about reporting the bankruptcy, I would say no.
But when you go for a loan, sometimes they'll ask you, have you ever declared bankruptcy before? They can do
and
that.
in that instance, I would definitely encourage him to report it. But if it's and generally you see that question like, have you ever filed within the past 8 years, or there's a specific time frame, and if it was outside of that time frame, I would just answer honestly.
And what are some of the reasons why I would not want to file bankruptcy? It just seems like it's such an easy thing to do.
Why would you? Well, it does affect your credit. I mean, if you file a Chapter 7, that stays on your credit for up to 10 years. Chapter 13, I think it's up to 7 years. So it is something that kind of looms there for some time. So again, it's not something that I always advise.
Well, and we see people that have a lot of mortgage or equity in their house. So if you've got a $200,000 house and you only owe $100,000 on it, filing bankruptcy is not going to be a good option for you because you're basically going to have to liquidate your house, right? Your exemption for having equity in your house is only $15,000. So if you have more than that, bankruptcy is not going to make a lot of sense for you.
And so you're finding what? It's mostly credit card debt? Is that what gets people? Car loans?
Well, we see a lot of credit card debts, a lot of medical bills, very unanticipated medical bills, and payday loans. I've seen quite quite a bit of that over the years. It can be alarming, and those things can be predatory, so we want to be careful.
Well, and they catch up. You know, you can't ever catch up. Once it's kind of like you go into the black hole and you can't ever get out of that situation.
Well, for your people who get hurt, the money hasn't come in from their accident or whatever. Do you ever advise bankruptcy?
You know, we look at that situation a lot as people say, well, you know, what am I going to do? And a lot of times, you know, we work with people to try to figure out a way to make ends meet. Unfortunately, if you've got an existing personal injury claim and you file for bankruptcy, your injury claim will become an asset of the bankruptcy estate. So basically, you're no longer going to be in charge of the recovery. We have to go petition the bankruptcy trustee to hire us to be the attorneys in charge. They regulate the fees closely. They regulate the amount of the recovery. And a lot of times, if it just goes completely into discharge, you know, back into paying creditors, some clients just say, well, it's not going to be worth it for me to do that. So, you know, if you are in that situation, you want to, make sure you tell your attorney about it, because if you don't, then you may not be able to make a claim at all.
Wow. We have a caller who doesn't want to go on the air, but, I'd have gone on the air on your show, but wants to know, they're about to move out of state. Mm-hmm. Should they declare bankruptcy here or wait till they get to the next state? Or does it matter?
Well, every state is different. All the exemptions are different. I mean, it could be that where they're moving to has actually more favorable exemptions. So I can't really answer that without knowing a bit more.
Well, can I come to you for just an hour of consultation? Would you meet with me?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, and so in terms of people that have outstanding debts that have questions, do you charge an hourly fee on the front end of that, or is there like in personal injury cases, we'll meet with people for free consultations and then figure out whether or not we can go forward with representation. Is that the same in your type of work?
Well, not with bankruptcy. I actually do charge like an hourly consultation fee if you wanted to come in and speak with me. And then after that, we kind of gauge which direction we're going in, and based on what chapter, it will be either the flat fee in a Chapter 7 generally, or in a 13. Of course, it's much more expensive.
That's right. We don't expect you to work for free. And we got to pay some bills here, so we will be back in just a minute. If you would like to talk to Raven Perry Beach, you can reach her here in Huntsville at 256-799-0292 or see her on the web at beachlawpractice.com. And of course, Michael Timberlake of Timberlake & League here in Huntsville does personal injury work. 256-536-0770 or law-injury.com.
And Sharon Doviet is on vacation, so Robert's filling in for her tonight, but you can reach her at 256-539-7337 or at Sharon Family Law. She does divorce, child custody, all types of family law issues.
And let me suggest that you tune in to Channel 31 on Monday at around noon. You'll be on, or one of the members of your firm will be on to talk some law stuff.
Midday.
Raven, it's been great having you. Thank you so very much for joining us.
Thanks for
Appreciate
having me.
your help.
Thank you.
Lots of good information. And Sharon Doviet will be back next week. Thanks for joining us.